You've had a long career. You joined the Canadian Armed Forces in 1987. You became a reservist in 2001 until 2016. You were hired, as we've heard today, by National Defense in 2023. Earlier today in your testimony, you said that it was fairly common, quote unquote, that many government employees have a company on the side. You said that that was your own perception. Could you elaborate what informed your perception that many government employees run side hustle businesses on the side?
Well, I can tell you this, that Canada and our taxation system and everything being so expensive with inflation and everything else, whether you're a government employee or whether you're someone else not working with the government, there's likely a chance that you might have something else on the side to help pay the bills and put groceries on your table. So my perception is I'm an entrepreneur. I try and start things all the time, and I'm looking for multiple sources of income, and I'm sure that many Canadians are in the same boat, whether they're working for the government or not.
With all due respect, sir, that was not my question. You said earlier that your perception, your own perception, is that many government employees have corporations on the side. My question to you is, what informed your perception that other, not yourself, but other government employees, and in fact many of them, as you stated, have corporations on the side?
Well, I'm not, again, this is my own perception, and whether they have corporations or whether they have, things after hours, it's their own business. But I can tell you that from my perspective, I'm out doing what I need to do for the government during the day, but then I'm an entrepreneur at night and trying to do other things. So I can't imagine others aren't similar.
You talked earlier about how you got into securing government contracts. In fact, you said you go after them. And I want to hear from you, Mr. Yeo, how easy has it been or difficult has it been for you to secure government contracts? Would you consider yourself successful in being able to secure government contracts for work through your company?
Dalian has really been in my opinion anyways, Dalian has been a very good success story. Up until recently, with all of this hype about me being an employee prior to the ArriveCAN days and during ArriveCAN. But yeah, understanding how, and this is what PSAB actually does for us, is that it allows us to be able to be a part of the solution with the government as far as Indigenous companies are concerned, and learn about how to interact with the government through contracting, through procurement, through staffing, and all of the other aspects that go along with that. So absolutely, yep.
You understand, as an employee or former employee of National Defense, and as somebody who has had many interactions with government over the years, that public servants play a fundamental role in serving this country, that their conduct is carefully watched, and that it's important to uphold public trust, because Canadians put their faith in the government to deliver programs and services, and that includes the people that are hired within that public service to act in the most transparent, accountable, and ethical ways. Would you say that it can be seen as a perceived conflict of interest when you have been able to be so successful, yet I hear a very different narrative on the ground from people who are everyday Canadians unable to access government contracts, companies that are doing good work, innovative work, that have told me that they're unable to even crack the door open? Do you find that there is a perception that there is something that is allowing you to have access that other people cannot? And the fact that you have said today that it's common for people working in the public service to have corporations as you have, that the narrative that I hear from everyday people in my riding is that they can barely get home in time going through traffic, working 10 hours a day to then be able to prepare a meal for their family, that the last thing on their mind is to set up a corporation and have a side hustle where they can make more money and be able to afford the things that they need to. I'd like to hear your comments on that, Mr. Yeo.
Yep. No, I appreciate the backdrop. You know, it's been difficult. I mean, there is no easy button when it comes to working with the government. Many corporations die on the vine because of the fact that they just can't handle the actual process for actually winning contracts. You know, I agree with you on the fact that they, you know, the Canadians are struggling, and some of the people don't understand how to actually process, you know, successful, you know, contracting mechanisms. But in the end, it's very competitive. It's super competitive, and our hardware and software business has shown that in the last 5 or 6 years, where we have put in multiple RFPs and not won them. But certainly, you know, learning the process, whether it's under PSAB or whether it's under a different non-Indigenous side, and how to interact with the government is very long, very arduous, and extremely complicated.
Earlier, you mentioned your billionaire.
I'm afraid that's the time, Mr. Chen. We've gone well over. I know your side does have another spot left, and I know you have more questions. So I will move on to Madame Sinclair Desgagnés. Vous avez la parole pour 2 minutes 30 secondes, s'il vous plaît.
You have the floor for 2.5 minutes, Ms. Sinclair Desgagnés. Mr. Yeo, how long have you known or have you been working closely with Mr. Wood from Cordix?
Colin was, he came into Karadix a number of years ago, but again, you know, I've been working at D&D 2 Gates Deep for a long time, and have not exactly a lot of interaction.
Mais vous avez mentionné tout à l'heure que Coradix.
But you mentioned Cordix and Dalian and how they work with shared services and have been doing so for several years. So how long have Dalian and Cordix been working so closely?
Oh, since the beginning. Since the beginning. I mean, I came to them in 2002 with my first contract.
Vous ne connaissiez pas Monsieur Wood avant.
And you didn't know Mr. Wood before he joined Cordix?
No, I did not.
Savez-vous que.
Do you know that just before coming to Cordix, Mr. Wood worked at Veritech, which on 23rd of February 2009 was found guilty of falsifying supply. They were rigging a bid. Were you aware of that? So Mr. Wood would have hidden the fact that for his former company that he worked for just before Cordix was doing the same maneuvers that that strangely enough, Dalian and Cordix are being accused of today in terms of rigging, and GC strategies in terms of rigging bids. And shortly after 2015, there were other accusations about Mr. Wood, and he left that company and came to Cordix and has been working closely with Dalian. Do you see any link between the potential allegations of bid rigging, which were revealed by the Auditor General's report, and those already done by a firm regarding a firm that Mr. Wood was sales director of at the time?
Yep. No, I can only attest to what I know, and that is I've known Colin since he came to Karadix. I was not aware of his previous employment.
D'accord. Considérez-vous encore travailler?
Are you still considering working with Mr. Wood now that you know that he had him, or not him directly, but the company he was working for, that he was sales director for, was found guilty of bid rigging?
Yeah, it's always a conversation. It'll always be a conversation. So yes, I'll have
Donc c'est normal pour vous?
So that's to be expected for you? That's normal?
No, it's not normal. Of course not.
Ça va? Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
You have the floor for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I do want to return to the comments you made in relation to one of my colleagues' questions on the doctored resumes. And so the doctored resumes, what do you know about these resumes?
Not much, to be honest with you. I mean, in the end, you know, if you talk about what happened between Bottler and GC, they could put anything on there as far as their experience is concerned. And when our relationship is with GC and with the Crown, obviously with CBSA, as our subcontractor.
So how involved were you in the review of Bottler's resumes?
Me personally, zero. I was at D&D, 2 Gates.
What about your company?
My company? Obviously, I mean, it was a JV, right? So we obviously had interaction with GC Strategies in performing the task authorization requirements, yeah.
And so did GC Strategies speak to you as to their use of the company, Butler?
I'd have to check with our staff and ask them that. I'm not aware of. Obviously, they had to have some interaction, you know, between the task authorization request and our relationship with GC, but I'm not aware of the details of what they discussed as far as Bottler's concerned.
So these forged resumes that gave preferential access and eventually the awarding of the bid is tremendously disingenuous and is certainly defrauding Canadians. And so I want you to know how serious this issue is and to understand that providing any assistance from your company to the forgery of documents is illegal. Do you understand that?
Absolutely, and that's why we're just as dismayed as everybody else as to why and how we could have got this information wrong.
Whose letterhead were these resumes on?
So I would expect that our relationship as the prime to CVSA, we would have staffed up the package for the task authorization to them as part of the requirements package. So it would have gone on Dalian letterhead, but I'm not sure exactly what the interaction or documents or letterhead was.
So you're misrepresenting facts, Mr. Yossi. That's completely disingenuous to then say your company never had any access to a bottler. Your only relationship was with GC Strategies, and then you just now confirm that the resumes that were forged were in your company's letterhead. Is that true?
So again,
can you repeat that? No, Mr. Yo, is what you just said true? Are the forged resumes on your company letterhead?
I can give you the process. I have never seen
Mr. Yo, can you please answer yes or no to the fact you just submitted?
Well, I tell you this. I understand what the process would be because I understand task authorizations, but I have not seen any of the paperwork.
You just admitted that you've not seen the paperwork, but you just said you know that the letterhead is on Dalian, or the forged documents are on Dalian letterhead.
I can assume that obviously us as the prime and us giving CVSA this documentation as a part of the task authorization, likely it would go on Dalian letterhead.
Mr. Yo, this has been extremely disappointing to see this level of misrepresentation.
Your time, Mr. Desjardins. Turning now to Mr. Genuis. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Yo, your company has 2 people. Is your partner Indigenous?
He is.
He is, okay. You got $7.9 million on ArriveCAN alone, even though, as you've testified, you didn't do any actual work on the app. How many Indigenous Canadians, besides you two, benefited from that big fat check that the government wrote to Dalian for ArriveCAN?
So our interpretation is that it's 4.9 million. But the aspect
so your interpretation is that you know better than the Auditor General?
I'm just telling you the facts that from our side. And we actually went out to the.
I think that's absurd, sir. But I want to actually focus on the Indigenous procurement component of it. Sure. How many Indigenous people besides you and your partner?
I've stopped the clock, Mr. Jonathan. I will just remind everyone, because this has come up time and time again. The auditor's terms do not allow her to go into companies like the one before us today, Dalian. So that you sent her documents from her perspective could have been irrelevant. You'll all recall that the auditor noted she came up with these numbers based on what the government of Canada provided her. So just that is just a point of clarification for the committee. It doesn't change any of your questions, Mr. Janice. I just wanted to kind of put that out there, that this is an ongoing debate about the scope of ArriveCAN, and I think it is an important one. So we don't know what the answer is. That's why these committee meetings are happening. Ms. Generous, you have the floor for 4.5 minutes.
Mr. Yo, besides the 2 people at your company, how many Indigenous people benefited from the $7.9 million that the Government of Canada gave you for the work you did on ArriveCAN?
So in reference to the 7.9 million, which is actually 4.9, our actual representation of profit in that helps not only pay our